Now, did you have a good break? We would like to now begin the last session of the day. We'd like to ask you to stay with us until the very end of the day. So session 3 is titled Metaverse and the Emergence of Virtual Economy. We live in a world where the boundary that separate online and offline, as well as the real world and the virtual world, is disappearing. We are experiencing the emergence of Metaverse, and Metaverse is coming close to our daily lives, and it's impacting all different aspects of the industry. Production, consumption, and exchange of value within Metaverse involves the blockchain technology, cloud, and digital cryptocurrency. And we are truly experiencing a new digital transformation. In this session, we would like to tap into different potentials and possibilities of that virtual economy. Presentation will be delivered by CEO of Dream and Futures Lab, Lee Yong-dok, David Lee, and CEO of Future Designers, Hugh Che. Moderator is President Kwon Hoyeol of KISDI. Please welcome with a warm round of hand. Good afternoon. I am Kwon Hoyeol from KISDI. I'm very happy to be chairing this session on the topic of Metaverse and emergence of virtual economy. So we have about an hour and a half that's given to us. Before we begin, I would like to welcome all of you to this session. Metaverse is widely used in games. So in terms of a lot of service providers of Metaverse, their key target customers are young people in their teens and the younger generation. But Metaverse, as our moderator has correctly pointed out, there are different technologies that become a business, and those businesses form an industry, and that industry really transform the overall economy. And it will have a pervasive impact on the economic structure and the social structure as we know it. In that regard, we've invited two experts who have extensive experience in the realm of Metaverse. So we will invite our two speakers and listen to their insight, after which we will take questions from the audience, both online and offline. Now, our first speaker that we are going to invite is from Dream and Future Lab. Or Mr. Hugh Che of Future Designers. He studied engineering, and he researched at Samsung Electronics, and he was the CEO of Magic Echo. He was one of the co-founder, and he is at this point he is an innovation catalyst at a design company called LifeSquare. He is a person who designed a lot of innovative projects, and not just planning, but he's the one who brings to life these innovations. And such innovation and collaboration, he wishes to open that new era in Asia, so he set up Pan-Asia Network. And he also provides strategic advice to many different initiatives. And I think that today will be a great opportunity for us to share his insight on the many new aspects. So the emerging of Metaverse and virtual economy is one of his key areas of expertise, and he's written many publications as well. So please welcome Hugh Che with a warm round of applause. I will give you 30 minutes for presentation, and then I will tell you when you have 5 minutes left.
네, 반갑습니다. 오래 기다리셨습니다.
Thank you for waiting. We are at the final session of the day. The key word metaverse is a hot topic indeed these days, and as you heard earlier, I've worked for a long time in the innovation scene, so that has made my life very sensitive toward changes and innovation. the Metaverse is an important momentum for myself, and I've felt this throughout many instances in my daily life. So this trend of Metaverse going forward, I would like to talk to you about how this will bring about changes in our future. The topic of my presentation is the possibility and the future created with imagination called Metaverse. The most important tool or methodology of creating the future with innovation is the Metaverse. As you know, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, which has lasted for 2 years now, it has affected our lifestyles and in many industrial areas. The non-face-to-face aspect has rapidly increased. And the Metaverse perhaps best reflects just changes that replace the face-to-face interaction. But having said that, Metaverse is not just a trend because it embodies the technological and societal changes that are taking place rapidly. And the Metaverse is a term used to encompass all those rapid changes. So what does this mean for us? And in our future, how will the Metaverse affect us? Let's first talk about the definition of the word Metaverse. I'm sure you've heard this through various channels, and there are many interpretations to the term Metaverse. Rather than talking to you about the meaning of the word itself, I would like to talk about the essence of this phenomenon called the Metaverse. In this trend of Metaverse, this is the application called Minecraft that's most often cited. It's an open world game popular among elementary school students. You enter the world of blocks and you can use blocks to create anything. Minecraft was first born in 2009 by someone called Marcus, who was a big fan of the Lego blocks. And he thought how exciting it would be to create digital blocks like a virtual Lego world. So this was his hobby. And this is how he came to develop the game Minecraft. And it took him an overwhelming 2 weeks to create this game. And this game that took just 2 weeks to develop was favored by many. And it has developed by leaps and bounds. And over 200 million copies have been sold. And so in 2014, this game was acquired by Microsoft. So this is now one business division of Microsoft. And it all started with the Lego block, which is a physical toy block that exists in the physical world. But now Minecraft's influence has outstripped that of Lego and is affecting many areas. And so recently, Lego has created a Minecraft series of toys. The phenomenon that you've seen the most during the past 20 years is something like this. Something that used to exist offline has become available online on the internet, and with its influence growing by leaps and bounds, conversely, the online space is affecting and bringing about changes in the offline space. And that can also be seen in the development of the Minecraft. In Lego, they recently created something called the hidden site. Have you ever seen it? This hidden site is after you complete your creation, you take out your smartphone to take a picture of the castle that you have built, and it comes to life. And then it progresses to a game in which you play hide and seek in that physical castle that you've created with the Lego blocks. So to what extent is reality and to what extent is virtual reality? So where does virtual reality begin and where does the actual reality end? Can you tell the borderline? Maybe some of you can, but I cannot. I cannot tell where one reality ends and the other begins. This phenomenon called the Metaverse is seen in many places, but the important essence is this. The border between reality and virtual reality is blurring, and it's disappearing. And in that disappearing borderline, you see new values created. I think this is the most important trait or the quintessential aspect of Metaverse. The many new things you will see in the future will be a continuation of this theme, where the actual world and the world that you see will have a great difference between them. And surprisingly enough, the gap between the two will continue to grow. And ironically, the world that you see will become the world that actually exists, or you will perceive it as the world as if it actually existed. Then, why now? Why Metaverse? Many people say Metaverse is a fad. It will pass with time. People's interest will wane. There have been many fads in the past, so will Metaverse go. I think that while interest in the word Metaverse might decline, the essence of what we're talking about and how it affects our daily lives and industries will last for a long time. And I would like to talk to you about 3 reasons why I believe this is so. First of all, 60% of the world's population is on the internet. 92.8% of them use the smartphone to be always online. In other words, over half the world's population is always connected, always online. Why is this important for Metaverse? Metaverse is a world that exists thanks to the internet because it's connected to the internet. Without the internet, Metaverse would not exist. In a sci-fi fiction, maybe it can exist, but all the metaverses that exist in reality are accessed via the internet. In other words, over half the world's population always being online means that they are Metaverse citizens, Metaverse users, people who can jump into the Metaverse space, are half the world's population. So we are at that critical mass. Secondly, the development of computing power. Computing power gets better and better. CPUs and GPUs are all chipsets that are the equivalent of the computer's brain, and recently the GPU, or the graphic processing unit, has rapidly developed. Usually the GPU is used in the graphic card used to process graphic information, for instance, Photoshop or video rendering. And high-resolution gamers, they have high-end GPUs. But since the noughties or the 2010s, the GPU started to be used in another purpose, the first of which is Bitcoin. You all remember the Bitcoin after 2010, blockchain, cryptocurrency, Ethereum, and people talked about mining the cryptocurrency as if you were mining gold from a gold mine. They use the word mine, but technically this is processing the blockchain algorithm. You decode the algorithm to extract Bitcoin. That's called mining. And the most important thing to do that mining is the GPU. That is why GPUs are hard to find on the market. They cost a lot, and GPU's processing power is developing by leaps and bounds. And there's something else. In 2016, the Go game between AlphaGo and Isedol. Isedol lost 3 out of the 4 games. At the time, AlphaGo was an AI software that had learned to play the game Go. And in playing against Isedol, it processed the algorithm, and the most important part of processing algorithm is the GPU. These days, people call it the neural processing unit, or NPU, but basically it's the same thing, NPU and GPU. So in the 21st century, the most destructive technologies have rapidly developed, and at the very base that made such development possible was the GPU. Having said that, why the GPU in the metaverse, you might ask? The second condition for the metaverse to exist and thrive is the world that visualizes and feels alive in front of us. We have to be able to see it. It has to be a seamless, smooth experience that makes it difficult to distinguish between reality and virtual reality. In other words, you need great graphic processing power. So the GPU processing power enables us to create very realistic worlds in front of our eyes. And that is the second condition that enabled the metaverse. The third, well, thanks to this, Facebook was able to launch the VR headset, which is called the Oculus 2. This is not the first VR headset. From 1985, people have been researching VR. There have been many headsets, but this Oculus in 2019 and 2020 are very important in my view because, first of all, to experience VR, until now you needed a whole separate computer. You needed to buy the headset and connect it using a USB. In other words, you needed to invest at least $500 to $600 US, but starting from Oculus 2, you don't need a separate computer to have the experience. The reason being the computer is in the headset. It looks exactly the same as a VR headset, but there's a computer inside that headset. So while it's called a headset, it's actually a wearable computer. This Oculus headset is very easy to use. There are many applications you can use on it. There's a lot of possibilities, and most importantly, it has become much cheaper. Oculus Quest 1 cost $399. Quest 2 cost $299. So this is a rapid drop in prices. So this is basically the cost of raw materials. In other words, Facebook is selling this at cost without a margin. So the Oculus Quest, in the 3-month time since its release, it sold 3 million units. And by the end of the year, it's estimated that over 10 million sets will have been sold. So this Facebook's VR headset is rapidly being sold and used. And you might ask, so what if it sold 1 million units or 10 million units? Let me cite the example of another product. In 2007, the iPhone was launched, as you all recall. Thanks to the iPhone, we now have smartphones in our hands. This paved the way for popular use of the smartphone. And it took 74 days for 1 million copies or for 1 million iPhones to be sold. And it took about a year and 3 or 4 months for 10 million iPhones to be sold. And the Oculus Quest headset is selling at a similar or slightly faster pace. No one knows if there will be more Oculus headsets sold than the iPhone, but what is for certain is that it's selling like hotcakes. And the 10 million users are a sufficient base to target something. So this is the tipping point, 10 million users. What this means is it will only grow further. There will be more and more people using this. We use tablet PCs and iPads, which are flat displays. And we use n number of screens, not just 1, but 2 or 3. With such 2D displays, we were able to access the infinite cyberspace and take information from there and meet many people in that 2D space. But what if the VR headset, a new hardware form factor, were added to the picture? And that is important because until now, we were in the real world. Only our eyes were in cyberspace, in experiencing content. But the world of VR is one in which the minute you put those headsets on over your eyes, everything that I see becomes part of the display, which means I truly immerse myself in the world created by the computer. So it's a whole new user environment in which a whole new set of values can be created. In the end, Zepeto or roadblocks and various metaverse cases are being discussed, but the technologies that will have even more impact are being created as we speak. I think this is the second condition for Metaverse to succeed. The first is internet connectivity. The second is the visualized world. The third is the use of a special device to access that world, in my opinion, the PC, smartphone, and the VR headset. Going forward, the AR glasses or our other hardware form factors will become available for us to use the device to access this infinite metaverse and do an infinite number of things. In history, whenever there was a new hardware form factor that always disrupted the existing industry, it also opened the doors to a whole range of opportunities and possibilities. And there are so many cases. When the computer first became available, when the first 2G phones became available, when the first smartphones became available, you all remember what happened. Such change of a magnitude, as the technology becomes popularized, opens the world to new horizons. So this is why Facebook says that in 5 years' time, it will no longer be a social media company, but will become a true metaverse company. And it even changed its name to Meta. And it was able to do so confidently because of these reasons, I think. And Microsoft, along with Facebook, is working very hard to maintain leadership in Metaverse. A few days ago, at the Ignite conference, they had a high-ranking official talk about everything Microsoft doing being in pursuit of the metaverse. This technical fellow called Alex Kinman said that this is inevitable, so they are looking at hybrid reality. In other words, access to the metaverse and creating experiences in metaverse through HoloLens is what they're developing now. And I think Microsoft's approach is, while we exist in reality, the various objects in the virtual world are brought to the real world for interaction. In other words, based on the real world, you break down the barrier with the virtual world. That's what Microsoft is trying to do. So the Azure-based platform called the Microsoft Mesh is going to be launched. Mesh is based on the Microsoft cloud environment called Azure. As you can see on the screen, people in real life bring the virtual world objects into the physical world so that people far away can collaborate in the same space. On the other hand, Facebook started with the virtual world and is working on expanding the virtual world. So Facebook's approach is different from Microsoft. The minute you put on the Oculus headset, you have the office environment right in front of you. As soon as you put the headset over your eyes, the surrounding space becomes your office. 3 monitors, 40-inch wide each, allow you to surf the internet, send emails, chat with your friend's avatar. These things become possible. Recently, the Horizon workrooms created by Oculus make it feel like you are working side by side, shoulder to shoulder in a virtual space. And you sense the tools to be productive. And Horizon, which is Facebook's social network expanded in the virtual space, is currently in the beta phase. And we can meet with friends, hang out together in that space, party together, and most importantly, you have access to the various tools. You can create buildings and spaces. Those tools will be provided to users by Facebook in the Horizon. So this opens the door to a whole set of possibilities. I talked about Microsoft and Facebook and other companies who are leading the frontier in Metaverse. Why are they so immersed in Metaverse? Why are they so heavily invested? And why are these important parts of the momentum to create a different world? I think the most important thing is metahumans, blockchains, artificial intelligence, all these technologies come together, in other words, converge to make many things possible, among which the most important thing is to bring to life our imagination. to bring the imagination to fruition for the masses. What does this mean? The minute you put on that headset, the Oculus Go, you are 200 meters in the Pacific Ocean observing marine life. You can swim with the fishes. Is that possible in reality, to be in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, to swim with the fishes, swim with the dolphins and sharks? That would be very difficult. But in this virtual space, we can do that. Or we can go to the South Pole. We can be among the group of the penguins. Observe the penguins. Or Elon Musk's spaceship. We can go to Elon Musk's spaceship to observe the planetary movements. All these are things you could only imagine, but now we have the tools to bring the imagination to life. If you want to learn to DJ, you need to buy the equipment, but the minute you put on the Oculus Go, you have the DJing device in front of you. The important DJing masters will teach you. This app is available for about $40, so all these surprising things will happen. And you can also climb mountains. This is one of my favorite apps. You are automatically transported to the Alps or other cliffs. So you find your hands perspiring because it seems so real. You cannot look down because it's too scary. The experience is so realistic. You can ski even if it's not snowing, and it's not just in games where the imagination comes to life, but in other industrial areas. You can use this technology. Companies like Audi, the automaker, there's a Hoyeol ride, which is a internal startup that was spun off. The company's mission is to take all the existing cars in the world and make them into theme parks. Inside that car, you can put on the VR headset. In reality, if you put on the VR headset, you will get motion sickness. So how will you be able to wear these in cars, you might ask? When you put on those headsets, the contents are GIS based. Just like Pokemon Go. And the devices come with sensors that sense the movement of the car, whether the car is braking or accelerating, whether it's taking a right turn or a left turn. It can make the distinction and then on a real-time basis reflect that in the contents. So if you're riding on the back of a flying dinosaur in Jurassic Park, if the car speeds up, your dinosaur will speed up as well. Regardless of where you are physically, you will feel different sensations. While you're using that VR headset, it will feel very much like you are in that theme park riding on the back of a dinosaur. We have not yet entered the world of automotive vehicles, but let's say that in a decade, there's no longer a need for you to even touch the wheel of a car. Then the automotive vehicle will no longer be just a means of moving from point A to point B. It can become a theme park then, once automotive driving is here. So this company called Holoride is working with Disney to create a virtual theme park. As long as you have the VR headset, you can fly to the Nevada desert to have a fireside festival with your friends. And thanks to this, a lot of things are happening in this metaverse, the internet-based virtual reality. Roblox, along with Minecraft, is one of the most popular games among elementary school students. They already have a daily user base of 40 million, and Roblox is popular first and foremost because it's not just a game, it's where you make things and realize yourself. Roblox offers Roblox Studio where you can make items, you can make games, you can make anything. And you can bring your imagination to life. So over 8 million developers, or rather creators, are working on Roblox, and they have created over 50 million games in Roblox. This Squid Game on the screen that you see, in just 1 month after release on Netflix, thanks to the global popularity, led to over 1,000 Squid Game related games in Roblox. So this goes to show there's infinite possibility, and there's a creative economy or virtual economy in that space. Thanks to all this, the augmented reality, virtual reality, AI, virtualization technology, all of these have become available to us. So now we're able to create virtual humans or meta-humans. As you saw in a recent ad, we are meeting meta-humans or virtual humans. Metaverse, I'm not sure whether you agree, but I think it's very similar to the universe. There are hundreds of billions of places in the universe, but there's still one space. Many universes, many solar systems, many planets, but it's all encompassed in space. I think the same goes for a metaverse. Whether you have 10 million or 100 million Robloxes in metaverse, whether you have 1 million or 10 million such spaces, it all falls under the category of metaverse, which includes the world we live in. We have the technology at our disposal. That's why we're able to realize meta-human, which is an expansion of humanity. In the virtual space, how many me's can there be? In real life, there's only one me. We can make many avatars, and it doesn't have to be the identity of me as of now. It can be the alternate identity, alter ego in Metaverse. I don't know how long it will take us, but after a dozen years or so have passed in the Metaverse, if we run into one another and we like each other and we can be honest with each other and become friends, that person could be a metahuman and not a real person, but we won't be able to tell. So in the end, the border between reality and virtual reality will collapse because we will expand in this ever-expanding virtual space. Until now, many technologies have helped us expand our space. We've become very productive. This space where you're sitting, you can send emails, work, talk with friends, listen to lectures. We are leading very productive lives. This metaverse technology, digital twin, meta-human, AI, VR, AR, all these technologies, again, will help us expand our time and space, and it will combine with our time and space and lead to even more infinite possibilities. It takes a great deal of imagination, a lot of possibility without physical restrictions, and that is the world that is coming for sure. And I think that world will present us with a lot of opportunities and possibilities. That is the end of my presentation. Thank you very much.
예, 최영욱 대표님 발표.
Thank you very much, Hugh Che. You talked about how the boundary between reality and the virtual world will go away and how these two worlds will integrate. 5 years ago, when we talked the fourth industrial revolution, cyber world and physical world will become one, will be combined to one. That was the idea that was raised at the time. We already have a lot of questions that's incoming through the website. So would like to ask the audience to continue to submit their questions. So CEO Che talked about the metaverse and the future that's created with our imagination and creativity, all starting with technology, and eventually we will arrive at virtual economy. And at the very forefront of virtual economy, we also have David Lee. He's the CEO of Dream and Future Labs. And one of the basic infrastructure that will enable the metaverse is the internet network, the infrastructure, as well as computers and all the devices. He was the country manager of NVIDIA, which is known for their GPU computing capabilities. So GPU computing technology, as well as the AI market in Korea, was really led by his key drive. And he also went through many different companies. He worked as a professional CEO, leading many of the IT tech companies. So CEO Lee really played an important role as a member of the management, and he was working in the IT industry for the past 30 years, and he experienced changes and transformation in the IT market, and he's also coaching many startup companies. CEO Lee also is a mentor to many mentees, and I understand that this is very surprising. He has about 20,000 mentees that he's currently supporting. And also, he set up Dream and Future Labs, which is a charity organization through which he really shares his expertise. So please welcome David Lee with a warm round of hand.
여러분 반갑습니다. 지금 소개받은 이용덕입니다.
Good afternoon. As was introduced, I am David Lee. Today we're talking about Metaverse. Back in 2006, I became the country head of NVIDIA in Korea. Over the past 13 years, all the technologies and things that I worked on back in 2006 has now become part of Metaverse. NVIDIA in the game market led the market as a game processor like Lineage, Black Desert, and all of these game titles. The graphics that's required for game applications, that was the business or the market for NVIDIA. And then come 2010, 2011, 2012, we developed a AI accelerator, a GPU for AI accelerator. So we started to specialize in that segment. And then come 2013 and 14, very gradually, VR has become a goose laying a golden egg. And then so in 2015, there was this very strong trend. And so NVIDIA worked together and developed together with a lot of Korean companies. We supported a lot of Korean startups. But looking back, you know that VR market didn't really open up. In 2016, DeepMind developed AlphaGo. AlphaGo played a game of Go. And there was an article saying that NVIDIA's GPU was used to develop AlphaGo. So NVIDIA really became a frontrunner in the IT industry. So I left the company back in 2018. And then come 2019, 2020, we started to hear about Metaverse or the virtual economy. So Metaverse, as of today, really is hitting not just Korea, but Silicon Valley in the US. So why is that the case? That basically is the gist of my presentation today. I want to imagine together with you, Mr. Chair mentioned this as well, together with all of you, we are now in Walker Hill Hotel in the Grand Room. Why don't we just take this and put that in a PC? Desk, the lighting, the chairs, everything, we draw that. But we can't go inside that computer. That's why we use avatars in Metaverse. So it's a second me. So on the PC platform, I'm expressed through an avatar. As Mr. Chair mentioned, we could call that meta-human. So we have avatars. But then what about future? Yesterday, NVIDIA had GPU technology conference. This started last night, Korea time. You see Jensen Huang, he's the CEO of NVIDIA. So Jensen Huang comes out in our technology conference as an avatar. Jensen Huang said that Metaverse age is coming, And for the coming 2 decades, Metaverse is going to be defining the world we live in. So 3D dedicated hardware platform Omniverse was introduced by NVIDIA. And as you know, 2 weeks ago, I think it was 2 weeks ago, Facebook actually changed its company name to Meta. And Mark Zuckerberg said that Facebook is no longer #1 for us. Metaverse is going to be a new future for us. He spends about 1 hour and 10 minutes on this very topic. Future of entertainment, of education, and of work. He showcased those future technologies, saying that all the pivotal role is going to be assumed by Metaverse. Now, if you look at PC, if you think of a PC environment, the metaverse that we see through a PC, why would that require a head-mount display? Because inside that metaverse, there's experience, there's interaction, there is exchange. So that is required. That's why you need a head-mount screen. So without a revolution in technology, today's technology would not exist. Same would apply to Metaverse. In 1994, when Internet was first made, there was Web 1.0 with smartphone, there's Web 2.0, always on connectivity. And then there's Web 3.0, which provides super connectivity. Age of super connectivity has arrived. It is because of that Metaverse and Metaverse technology can really take off. Now, with Metaverse technology, virtual world has become a reality. And in 2022, blockchain-based distributed connection is made possible with a virtual economy now having the basis to take off. This is BTS, and this is their song, Dynamite. Last September, they released their new title, Dynamite, and their music video was released as well. Do you know where BTS released their music video? Not on online, but at Fortnite Metaverse Virtual World, they released their music video. And BTS last year, they made about 50 billion won, which is about $42 million of revenue just by holding an online concert. And this April, Blackpink at Geppetto, because they can't meet their fans face-to-face, they had a fan signing event. And in that day only, the total number of visitors were 46 million. So in all of the different areas, there's so many attempts utilizing Metaverse, and there is continuous try and trials with new experiment. And all of these attempts and challenges that they are embarking on, we are seeing the outcome of the transformation. And we are seeing that outcome with our own eyes. So Blockade is a blockchain game company. Margaret, the CEO, said that people of today have two identities. One in real life and the other in Metaverse. So in Zepeto, I have an avatar, and that will be my second identity. Now, Gucci sold $5 emoji handbag. At the very beginning, I think it was sold for $5. I think Gucci sold probably 7 or 9 Gucci bags, right, on the Geppetto platform. I don't remember exactly as to how many they sold. It was a limited edition. Do you know how much it is now? It's currently traded at $4,000. So in this virtual world, to my second me, which is an avatar, Generation MZ is spending their money to decorate their avatar. So the world is changing. So on-offline is becoming borderless, and there is infinite expansion that we are experiencing within the metaverse. That's what is happening as we speak. And secondly is the evolution of avatars. 10 years later, who do you think is going to be the top star? The metahuman virtual influencers were mentioned before. On Instagram, globally, there's more than 130 virtual influencers having and exerting a significant influence on their followers. Why don't I share with you a short video?
사람들은 날 신기하지만 난 당신들이 더 특별해 보여. 자신만의 컨셉이 있으니까. 나도 찾았어. 나만을 위한 컨셉. 컨셉추얼 패션 플랫폼 Wake Up Your Concept. W 컨셉.
여러분에게
So, Korea this spring, there was Roji. Roji is a virtual influencer developed by Sidus. She's metahuman. She was featured on a commercial of an insurance company. Now, Roji is a very influential advertisement spokesperson. More than 150 companies are lining up to work with Rosie. So there is a 40-membered team that operate or run Rosie. So Rosie, basically, the graphic work was done. They take photos of Rosie and images of Rosie. In 2023, Rosie will go into Metaverse, and she would evolve a step further in becoming a metahuman. So in 10 years' time, who do you foresee is going to be the top star? In Korea, we have a Korean K-pop group called aespa. On left, you see Karina. Karina is a real person. And there's Karina is the AI version of Karina. So it's AI-based virtual character. This team is made of 4 female singers, but there's the virtual version, so there's total 8 of them. And on Instagram, they communicate with one another, they give instant messages to one another on the KakaoTalk platform. Now, I think that this is a great opportunity for people with great imaginations. I think in 3 to 4 years' time, aespa is going to go into the Metaverse. aespa, from the very beginning, has made the second identity. And it will go into Metaverse, and there will be that exchange of communication with real person and the AI person. So there are 8 of them. On stage, they sing together, they take videos together, and they engage in different activities together. So on the left is Rosie. Globally, like Michaela, she's the biggest influencer. Basically, this influencer made about 14 billion won in 2019. She has follower base of 3 million on Instagram and 2 million followers in TikTok and YouTube. According to Hype Auditor, this is the research data that they published. Basically, every single year, virtual influencers 2022 is going to be grossing in about 16 trillion won of top-line revenue. So this is a CAGR basis growth of 30% every year. So by 2025, virtual human is actually going to be taking more than 50% of the market by 2025. This is according to the projection of Hype Auditor. If you look at social network, TV drama, commercial, music, singers, film, opera, an anchor person, and the news, your 9 o'clock news, in 10 years' time, who is going to have what position? It would be hard to predict, but I think I can attempt at that. It's the Metaverse, the metahuman in Metaverse are going to assume more role in the society. So I talked briefly about the virtual world. Now let's delve into the virtual economy of that world. early November or starting end of October at Manhattan, Times Square, NFT companies started to showcase their commercial and advertisement. This is a highly expensive space, and the reason why NFT companies started to run their commercial is because there was a NFT event or NFT conference that took place in early November. After the end of the NFT conference, I looked at many articles, I looked at many reports and publications, and this is the conclusion that I drew. In just one sentence, I would say the following. It was a conference where you could see the future of content. In early 2010, when VR was first being developed, you basically had to put on the head-mount display, and there's a restriction or limitation as to the types of content one could enjoy, and it was all first-person perspective. But Metaverse is not first-person perspective. Our world is just implanted on the virtual world. So there is that interaction. There is that sharing of one's habit, of the work that they do. So if you look at game, and then there's art, which is currently the biggest potential for NFT. During the NFT conference, on the gaming side, the three key agendas were within the game platform, Metaverse platform or Metaverse world was being formed, and then play to earn. By taking part in playing a game, basically, you can make money, and there is a new economy that's being created that allow for that earning. And there's digital property or intellectual property that could be protected more strongly by NFT. Then on the art side, because in the art world, everyone is a creator and anyone can also be a collector. And with NFT art market becoming more generalized and more accessible, I was able to see that this conference really showed direction. As you know, NFT allows you to purchase the art with your cryptocurrency. And it's not just art pieces, but music and even text files can be traded by means of or by way of NFT. So basically, NFT defines the future of content on top of Metaverse and on top of blockchain. So this New York conference was very pivotal. And also, NFT and Metaverse, basically everything is global. It's not confined to one country or one locality. If you look at Zepeto, they have more than 200 million subscribers. And Zepeto is not just for Koreans, but for all. Especially I hear that there are a lot of young people in their teens. So after 10 years' time, these young people are going to become 20s and 30s. The picture that you see here basically was Beeple's NFT art piece that was auctioned off at 80 billion. So Beeple introduced a new art piece. The piece is called Beeple's Human One. The human inside that box is walking 24/7, and the background, the landscape changes. Basically from 11.7 billion, that was a starting price for the auction, according to the article that I read. NFT market capitalization. This is a data that I wanted to share with you. Compared to previous year, the market grew 125% year over year. So right now, it's at around 71 million dollars, which is around 90 billion in Korean won. So Metaverse market is a creator economy. Now we've opened up an era where anyone could do a business, whether you're a student, whether you are not an expert in games, or if you're not even an artist, the art pieces that you make or the text that you write, you could basically trade them based on NFT, and Metaverse is opening up that new opportunity for everyone. So virtual goods and virtual asset, these are going to be the two drivers behind the formation of virtual economy. So on the left is physical. So you see all the cryptocurrencies and digital gift code and points, and the art pieces are currently being made into virtual assets supported by NFT. So this is non-fungible, non-copyable. These virtual economy elements are going to only grow as we go forward. So thank you. That was my presentation. I look forward to the Q&A and look forward to your questions. I hope my presentation was informative. Thank you.
예, 이영덕 대표님 설명 말씀.
Thank you for your presentation, Mr. David Lee. He has talked about the various aspects of Metaverse. And in every opportunity or in every crisis lies an opportunity. He talked mostly about NFTs. Now it's time for us to have the Q&A session. I will share with you the online questions first before giving the floor an opportunity to ask its questions. This question is for two questions for Mr. Hugh Choi. First, the Green Smart Future School of the Ministry of Education took a lot of investment to create facilities change that's demand-side driven in the classroom. How should smart education or green education find its direction? I'm curious about various ESD-related case studies. I think it's ESG rather than ESD. And there's another question. Again, this question is for Mr. Hugh Choi. It also has to do with education. With the development of Metaverse, how should Korean education change? What kind of change is needed in Korea? Early childhood, primary and secondary and tertiary education, what should be taught and what should be learned? We are at the Global Human Resource Forum, so that is why people are interested in this from the perspective of education. These are very deep and important questions. It's very difficult to answer your questions with one word because the questions embody many opportunities. The important thing is, I think the education paradigm itself can change. When I was talking about the various technologies, all the things are now possible technology-wise to bring to reality our imagination. Now, thanks to technology, we're able to do things we did not dream of before. From the perspective of education, there are things that we feel with the availability of digital technology. Perhaps teaching in itself is meaningless because everything exists in Google. Everything is searchable. Given that context, is it realistic to expect to teach something, to provide guidance on something, to impart knowledge one way? I think it's rendered meaningless for the most part. Rather, it's all about self-initiative, self-learning, the process of embarking on finding the answer to your question. And I think Metaverse, VR, using VR and AR technologies can offer a much more immersive experience in which you can actually touch things. It creates a whole host of possibilities. For example, I went to engineering school. So back in school, I did chemistry labs, biology labs, various labs, physics labs, but do you happen to remember any of those experiments you did back in school? I don't remember anything. I do remember, however, when you have acidity, the litmus test, the test paper would change color. So it's in the end, it's the things that amount to nothing that you remember. Why is this all that I remember? But theoretically, I learned a lot of things. Nitroglycerin, when mixed with something else, explodes. Why did why were we unable to experience those things ourselves? And that is because it's dangerous. But in virtual reality, if in many cases they have chemistry labs as an extension of STEM education. So nitroglycerin. So you have all the chemical substances known to humankind in that chemistry lab. And in that virtual lab environment, if you mix nitroglycerin with something, it explodes. In reality, you cannot afford to do that. There are risks, but in virtual reality, you learn that, oh, this can explode and lead to fires and devastating consequences. In conclusion, education is no longer about teaching, imparting knowledge one way. It's about the journey of finding the answer and the experience, the process. So using new technologies, you can improve that process and have better education or learning effects so that learners can achieve self-development thanks to the enrichment made available through the technologies. That's the first part. And secondly, David Lee talked about NFT, but until now, we studied with the friends in your classroom. You were in the same physical classroom with your classmates. But with the metaverse, the internet connectivity, you can overstep the boundaries of the classroom. Using the HMD, you find friends from the US, find your Finnish friends, find your Chinese friends, with whom you can collaborate, do experiments together, experience things together. So rather than the competition-oriented education of the past, now you can work together, set your own rules, come to your own results and conclusions in the learning process. So rather than the traditional educational processes, we can tear down that traditional framework and use our imagination to enrich the learning experience with the new technologies. There's a VR app that I'm a great fan of, and you can paint pictures in space with the headset. Usually, you paint on 2D space, you make things in 3D space, but in that VR space, you create pictures or paintings. So this goes to show the verbs that we use in our daily lives are limited to the limited imagination that was available to us in the past. Thank you.
님 답변 말씀.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for that answer. Just following up with that question. So education is going to also change. I think the young people, the young students who are passionate about being part of Metaverse may not really know what it is that they're looking for. So in terms of the direction being provided, and also when they're learning something, there would be some guidance that will be required. And so mentorship, I think, is going to be very important. And what do you think about that? Although I cannot speak for the younger generation, I think that the starting point of that very thought may be a bit conventional, because if you go to Roblox and Geppetto, they're much better at whatever that they're doing. So for us to think that we're going to give them a guide basically is something that I think is rendered meaningless. Because I think the role of what we could do is when these younger generation, when they want to experience something and learn something, I think what we could do is we could stand by and support them in that process so they could better enjoy all these different activities. They use Metaverse more actively, and also in terms of more ethical usage, or as a person with more experience, there may be some areas where we could provide them with some guideposts. But if you look at the US, Roblox, because everything is Zoom these days, people don't really concentrate. Let's say the teacher, gives such a lecture through Zoom. There's no idea that whether children are really is concentrating. So what they do is they bring that classroom onto Roblox, because children really love Roblox, and children really participate actively, telling teacher, what it is that they like and what they don't. So the participation rate is further enhanced. And also within that environment, as a teacher, the role is as a coach, just embracing the children and the needs of the children. So with the digital transformation, there is changing role. And I think in the world of Metaverse, I think there will be a greater need for that. Well, thank you. So with regards to mentoring, I think Mr. Lee, our CEO Lee, also is an expert in that regard. So I'd like to ask for your insight. At Ewha Women's University for the past 3 years, I've been lecturing, and this year I've started to meet with young students at Seogang University. I think the whole education and training has been just one single way. It's just imparting of knowledge from teacher to student. That really has a constraint. I coached a lot of startups, and one of the things that I always emphasize is that I also set up a startup and I'm testing many things. It's very clear that idea comes before technology. I see that, I experience that every day. Then what is an idea? Idea basically is about creative idea. And that creativity, if you are directed by what your parents are saying, what your teachers are saying, if a children doesn't follow the guidance of parents, you've been scolded down on. And I also have that experience. But you have to think out of box. You have to be different. You need to be peculiar. Let's say if you're playing a game, in Korea, game is considered to be vice. Together with alcohol, cigarette, game is one of the 4 vices. We have professional gamers, and they are paid 2 billion won as their annual salary. And the pro gamers the professional gamers have a very strong platform. If you think of K-pop idols, a lot of children, they want to become a celebrity. Fast forward 10 years, how many idols, K-pop idols, do you think is going to be in our world? The 3D technology, I've shown you the virtual characters who have immense amount of influence. So creativity is very important. If there is two-way interactive pedagogy, I think there is a bigger opportunity there. Sometimes I have my classroom with just one whiteboard. I have a lot of mentees, and in our Dreams Lab, I just have a whiteboard and a pen. And I tell the students to share their ideas, and I write all their ideas on the whiteboard. And so we deduce, we analyze, we converge, we delete, and we come to one single conclusion. And I think in my mentoring sessions, what I feel most important is to first listen to others. We need to listen to others, and based on what we have heard, I put on top of that our experience and also the feedback of different people, and we converge all of that. We add different patches together. We delete. We take certain things out in the process. So when it comes to studying, my career, or what I'm going to do in the future, so all of these things have to be underpinned by creative idea. And we first need to identify that creative idea in this very long journey. So education and interactive communication is very important. Together with teachers, with parents, it has to be interactive. We need to first listen to them and then provide them with coaching. Thank you.
질문으로 넘어가.
Thank you. The next question is for Mr. David Lee. 2 questions, actually. Metaverse is an innovative technology. Without Metaverse going forward, we won't quite be able to live. Having said that, if our limited resources and limited time are all going into Metaverse, there will be whole industries and jobs that will collapse and no longer exist. From that perspective, there are 2 questions. First of all, for an individual's contents to become NFTs in Metaverse, could you share with us some cases of individual contents becoming NFTs in Metaverse. And secondly, in Roblox, the luxury brands have items that cost millions of won, which is thousands of dollars. So what are the rising industries in the Metaverse era? There will be rising industries, but there will be industries that are destroyed. And jobs that will no longer exist. How should we convert to the new jobs, not to the digital jobs, but to Metaverse jobs, perhaps? Mr. Lee, would you like to take that question? Yes. Roblox is a game platform. So I will continue to use those to answer the questions. Every quarter, I run a entrepreneurship school, and there are 8 classes worth 3 hours each as part of the curriculum. Maybe I teach those courses, maybe the CEOs of the startups themselves teach those courses. And during the past third quarter, when we were recruiting, there was a girl in 5th grade and a girl in the 6th grade who applied. And generally speaking, starting from the CEO of an Indian software firm and their subsidiary in Korea, CEOs of startup companies, and a professor/medical doctor from New York University are attending this class, and among them are girls in their 5th and 6th grades. And the girl in 5th grade does her research in a cube, in a desk, in a research complex in Daejeon. And I asked her what the topic of her research is, and she said she follows the courier. She's working on developing an automotive robot who will carry the courier's parcels and follow behind him. And the girl in 6th grade, I asked her, how did you come here? And she said, my dream is to become a woman CEO. I don't tell her what to do in order to become a female CEO. If she really wants to become a CEO, what I should do is to motivate her and motivate her. Metaverse. There are people talk about software engineers to bring about Metaverse, but there will be marketers, software developers, graphics developers, a whole host of jobs to enable Metaverse. So rather than limiting Metaverse to a handful of job descriptions, let's say that Metaverse is a company. There will be a whole ecosystem that will be necessary for this company called Metaverse to thrive. And in that grand scheme of things, you will have to ask the children, now, what do you like here the most? What do you want to be? I think that's the approach we should take. And I get asked a lot of questions on software coding. There are many private institutes that teach software coding, but this is something you should seriously think about. You should check first of all whether your children are interested in coding, because all software engineers do is sit from morning till night in front of the computer. My child, on the other hand, cannot sit still for 2 hours. If I were to teach her coding, to sit still for long stretches at an end, would that work? So I think it's necessary to show the entire range of possibilities of Metaverse and then provide specific advice on the parts of Metaverse that the children are actually interested in. Regarding the NFT, this spring, there was a female middle school teacher in Korea who published a book of poetry. I don't remember her name now. And she just had 1 edition printed. And then she switched to NFT. She burned everything else. And the single copy of the first edition was sold at 9 million Korean won, which is about $9,000 US. And there's just this one book that survived from the first edition, and she made it into NFT, and it sold at $9,000, give or take. The coding itself can be done by many engineers, and if you put it up on the NFT NFT auction house. What's interesting is this female middle school teacher did not know anything about turning her book into an NFT. She put in phone calls and asked people how to do it. And then she, upon seeing that her single copy of the first edition claiming $9,000 said, oh, so this works after all. I don't think the loss of jobs will be destruction. Jobs change with the changing times. This is called transformation. So you need insight and information to understand where we are going in the transformation. That's what we need in the classrooms. Regarding the industry, I think Mr. Choi, being the expert that he is, there was the part about the industry in the last part of the question, I believe. Yes, the question was, any cases regarding NFT? So shall we move on to, yes. If we knew, we would be lying if we said we knew the answer to that question. But let me just share with you what I think. I get these questions a lot because I wrote a book on Metaverse. People often ask me what will be the industries that will be destroyed because of Metaverse, and which industries will be the biggest beneficiaries of Metaverse. Those are the questions that I get a lot. As Professor Lee mentioned, gaming industry might be the answer that comes to your mind, but I would say all the industries is the answer. And you might say, what kind of an answer is that? But I say, still, it's all the industries because let's go back 25 years in time. 1995, 1996, back then, the dot-com bubble was increasing. People asked the same questions back then. Oh, what industries will be affected the most by the dot-com? And what industries will be destroyed because of the dot-com era? Which jobs will be created and which jobs will disappear? I used to get the same questions. We get the same questions every time a new technology comes to our attention. And people would say commerce, media, education, but 20 years down the road, you know the answer. It's not just to one specific area in which the dot-com influence was felt. It permeates throughout our daily lives, as you know. And this is because the technologies are the tools that run at the basis of all this. This metaverse is enabled by the various technologies, VR, AR, digital twin, metahuman, blockchain, AI, virtualization technology. All of these technologies are behind the scenes working to enable metaverse. And I think these technologies are in every industry. So rather than thinking of which industries will be affected, let's put the question this way. How can I solve the problems I'm trying to solve using these technologies? How can I create the customer value that I hope to create with these technologies? Then you'll be able to identify the technologies that will best fit the description and put it to use. So don't be focused on which industries will be ruined or disappear or benefit from metaverse. I think the question that I put it is the right approach.
산업
Yes, in the age of metaverse, you shed some light on the industry and the different aspects. So I think we can come back to the topic of NFT later if we have some more spare time. I think we have around 10 minutes. So would like to ask one question to each of our speakers and then turn it over to the audience and give you an opportunity to ask question. Next question, we have two questions that's lined up. First, relating to industry. First to Mr. Hugh Che.
네, 답변이 아직 국내에서
So it seems like in Korea, use of metaverse is only limited to games and some aspects of office. So Coupang and Naver Shopping, so these e-commerce platforms, do you think that metaverse could come into play into this domain? And just to add on this, Mr. Che, in your view, metaverse already became a red ocean. There is cutthroat competition. So it seems that there's concern that where all these metaverses could be competitive because these big companies like Facebook, they already have hundreds of millions of subscribers, so they have economy of scale. So I'm wondering, companies like Coupang and Naver Shopping, as well as other companies in Korea, do you think that they could become and grow into a major company on the global stage? So that's the first question to you, Mr. Che. And second question is to Mr. David Lee. So if more people live in the virtual world and not in the real world, then I think this would be a dystopia. Are there any discussions within the industry about the potential negative backlashes from the metaverse? As Mr. Che mentioned during the presentation, the virtual world and real world no longer is separate. And in the virtual world, it will be difficult to trust the other person, the counterparty. It may be exposed to potential crime and different problems in relationships. So in order for us to build trust, how do we make sure we fend off these risks? So we'd like to invite our speakers for those questions. I was listening to the second question and I got kind of lost and I almost forgot the question that you posed to me. But anyhow, coming back to the question, I think there's a close relationship between internet, commerce, and metaverse. In my view, I don't think defining metaverse is all that important, but when I get these types of questions, we do need to think of the definition. When people call metaverse, people think of metaverse as a multi-dimensional, temporal and spatial space. And basically, they mix that up with all the AR, VR technologies in it. So if you think about what's the future of metaverse, how is metaverse going to impact e-commerce? Then if you think about this digital multi-dimensional space and temporal space at the same time, it's very difficult to come to an answer because it seems like there is no reason to bring this virtual space to e-commerce. So one thing I want to really highlight is that AR, VR, they are just a technology. And you could use the technology to make metaverse, implement a metaverse. However, those technologies can be used in other areas other than metaverse. Just because you're using VR, AR doesn't mean that that space that you're using it is metaverse. So in e-commerce, of course, you could utilize all the metaverse-related technologies on that platform. Let's say when you're buying a product, and we don't know how that product looks like because it's two-dimensional. But if we think about three-dimensional rendering, if you could zoom in and zoom out, then you would really know the product. Is that a metaverse? Not really, but it does use the metaverse technologies. So ARs and VRs could be utilized to do virtual pitch. You all have mobile phones. Download Gucci application. Now, Gucci has an application, so you download Gucci app. There's Gucci hat, clothing, and shoes. There's a menu you press, and you could try that product. And you have put the camera right in front of your feet, and then it will show you how that shoe would look like on you. So that's the type of a metaverse, and there could be basically using VR, AR, people may think that that's also metaverse. So there's that confusion. So using all these technologies, I think, can be applied to the platform to overcome the problems that the platforms currently experience. So Facebook changed its name to Meta, Apple, Amazon. Can Korean companies become as big as that? Now, I don't know whether they could or not. How would I know? I don't have a crystal ball. But what's more important is on this metaverse universe, there is no such thing as national boundary. So as long as a company makes a great product and offers great services, then they have a bigger market to serve. Then Korean companies, can they tap into that? I think Samsung and LG, because they're already a global company, we set them aside. But if you look at Kakao and Naver, they were internet platform companies. Despite the fact that they're really giants, they are domestic companies. They're more focused on domestic services. But I think they have opportunity to provide the global services through Metaverse. And although this wasn't the question, but one of the possibilities that I really see is that Metaverse is because it's connected with the internet, it's a visualized world. That's very close, similar to game. And as David mentioned, Korea considers game as one of the four vices, but we have a lot of experiences in making games. MMORPG games, where hundreds of thousands of gamers play all at the same time. And Metaverse is quite similar to the gaming environment. So we have experience in making that game, and we are good at it. We have excellent performance in it. So I think we have great potential. So the game industry, people who developed game and making the digital content, the creators, I think they are now in the face of an immense amount of opportunity for them. And so in that aspect, I think Korean companies do have great potential. Yes, thank you for that. Now, any negative effects from Metaverse?
부작용은 제가 얘기.
I'll talk about the side effects, and then Hugh, in the last part of his book on the Metaverse, wrote down 6 side effects. I remember 3 of them. Currently, we are on the internet platform. If we take that to the Metaverse platform, the same problems can arise in Metaverse that we have currently in the internet: credibility and security. This summer, Louis Vuitton and Cartier and the one other luxury brand I failed to remember anyway, these 3 brands created a blockchain-based consortium in which the genuine products will be assessed on this blockchain platform to discriminate against counterparts. The Gucci app is on an NFT basis. And as we move on to Metaverse using blockchain technology, a lot of these questions I think can be resolved. In Metaverse, my alter ego, the avatar, will communicate with other avatars. So what to do about the credibility in that space? That will be a big problem to tackle. But regarding how it will actually play out, we are still monitoring the situation. No one knows for sure. So Hugh, would you like to talk a bit more about the side effects of Metaverse? Interestingly enough, in many conferences in Korea, people always bring up side effects. So without waiting for something to fully develop and show its potential, people start worrying in advance about possible side effects. This Metaverse hit the US in 2003 already. Do you remember Second Life? Second Life was an app that enacts the Metaverse that we're talking about, and it's still in service, and Second Life was very popular. A lot of people did business in Second Life and earned money, and all the problems that we currently talk about were in Second Life. Racial discrimination, sexual exploitation. Because you're using voices to talk, the avatars would beat one another up. They would gang up on one poor avatar. But the interesting thing is, the existing laws cannot control what happens in Metaverse, because one can always say in their defense, oh, I beat up your avatar, not you in person. So in the end, none of the laws were able to resolve the problem. It was the platform companies who came up with the ground rules, which had to be complied with, otherwise you would be kicked out of the Metaverse. And any user who found such abuse, you file a report. In Facebook, you can file a report against people who abuse the system. So in the end, it has to be upon the voluntary volition of the participants, as well as the effort of the platform companies, that led to resolving some of the issues, but not all the issues were resolved, because just like in reality, there are many problems in the temporal world. We are aware of those problems, but still they persist because there are people who cause these problems. In Metaverse, because it's human interaction, it's people meeting others, and then you're bound to run into these problems. So we have to use various means to resolve these problems. From a technology perspective, Microsoft uses a bubble function. So if an avatar approaches you and starts to abuse you, you can press the bubble and that turns me into the invisible man. I become transparent. So this cuts off any interaction with that person who's abusing me or exercising verbal violence against me. Going forward in Zepeto and Roblox, if more people participate in such initiatives, these will lead to the problems that we've just discussed, and it will be up to us, our sense of citizenship, as well as the technological approach to resolve these problems.
이 시간이
Thank you very much for the answers. I think the time is up, but still we would like to give an opportunity for the audience to ask any burning question, if there is any. As we see your hand, please deliver the microphone.
하시고
Just briefly introduce yourself and pose your question.
예, 저는
I'm from Busan. I'm a superintendent at a high school in Busan. I would like to thank the presenters and would also like to thank the moderator. Whenever I come to this type of a gathering, I feel very much humbled because the things that you've mentioned and the education that's happening on site is very different. All the things that you have mentioned is not really being implemented in our educational site. From an edutech perspective, all the technologies that you've mentioned are just very marginally used. It's not really embedded into the curriculums that the students would need to benefit from. So we, the educational society, is moving very slow in the face of such fast-changing technology. So I would like to just raise an issue. The current government at this point, the Ministry of Education, is currently upgrading its educational framework. So in the face of for upcoming 20, they're developing a plan for 2030, a long-term plan. So we'd like to ask all the experts to provide feedback to the relevant ministries and the government authorities so that the education system of Korea could also be well in pace with such technological changes. Thank you. Thank you very much for that input and feedback. Yes, that is a quite important challenge for all of us. Thank you very much. So we've spent about 1 hour and 30 minutes. We've used up all the time that was given to us of the many things that were mentioned today. I believe that there is a new world that's coming our way, or actually it is already here. And depending on how we adapt to this new wave, that will really determine the competitiveness of an individual, of a society, and of a nation. I would like to take this opportunity to thank our two very distinguished presenters. And just any last word you want to you want to leave with us before you depart? Any just last single message? You need to be more diligent in learning the changing and transforming world. And then I think if you do that, you gain more insight. I want to say that technology is a tool that could bring your imagination into reality. But I think what's more important is curiosity. You need to have curiosity in order for you to see the difference between yesterday and today and tomorrow. And I would like to thank the superintendent for your comment. Teachers need to be curious. We all need to have curiosity. And I think with that curiosity, we could welcome in new opportunity and new change. Thank you very much to our two very distinguished speakers. One from Future Designers and the other from Dream and Future Labs. Both of the companies have the word future in it. And one person talked a lot about imagination, and the other person talked of dream. So I think we're all talking about the same thing. Our future is defined by our dream and our imagination. This brings us to the end. Thank you.
인사하십시오.
네, 아무래도 요즘 가장
The hottest issue these days, Metaverse, was discussed in this session that let us think once again about the future we should prepare. Let's have a big hand once again for our three speakers. This marks the end of day 1 of Global HR Forum 2021 Track C. We hope that you found today's sessions informative. We will resume session C4 at 9:20 tomorrow morning. Please refer to the program books for further information. Thank you once again for being with us till the end, both online and offline. I will see you back here tomorrow morning. Thank you.